quote this on me. There is no way the Orioles or Red Sox make the playoffs this season. Yeah, yeah. There's no way. There's no way.
For me, I gotta build a snowman.
I don't think all Mavs fans look into the stats like I do.
I'm mixing names, swapping pitchers' names, and everyone today. So thanks for catching.
I've given up on Drew Lock. I think you trade him.
I set the bar really low at the NBA predictions.
How are we talking about the Thunder in a MLB preview? I have no idea.
That's a perfect name. What you said, name brand players. Like, it's not the great value Target brand toilet paper or whatever. It's the Charmin Ultra Strong.
I don't know if Nick Nurse is the coach for the Raptors. I don't know if he's the reason why they won the 2019 championship. I feel like that was more of a team effort. Yeah, this questions the firing of Dwayne Casey, who I think is a very underrated coach. He's making the best of the Detroit Pistons situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was surprised that the Clippers gave up Lou Williams.
Everything's going wrong for the Lakers at the wrong time.
The Mavs cannot say we do not miss Seth Curry shooting threes.
Them losing like 40 players to the Chargers who play online.
I'm just gonna, and it lands to the Dolphins. I'm just gonna have to throw my hands into the air.
I agree 100%, and the reason why I agree is because this is a terrible trade for the long term.
To me, the Capitals really pushed all their chips for this season. So happy belated birthday to Madison Bowie.
Sam Bennett's someone I really expected to be a better player.
Hello, I'm Mike Grimes, and you've been listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 89th episode. Make sure to check out our part 1 episode of reviewing the MLB Trade Deadline, as we had to split it up in the second part, so this is it. But also to make sure that we are staying up to date. If you aren't subscribed, make sure to check out Outsiders Pod 21. It's our Outsiders Opinions Twitter page. So we tweet out every episode we're doing, and with the link to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. So make sure to check that out. And let's get back to the big trade, as we left off with the Marlins trading right fielder Adam Duvall to the Braves for catcher Alex Jackson. That was the ending of last episode, part 1. We start off part 2 with the Cubs trading right-handed pitcher Craig Kimbrell to the White Sox for second baseman Nick Madrigal and right-handed pitcher Cody Heuer. So I was surprised when I learned Madrigal had been traded, and I knew it was the right guy I was thinking of because you said the same guy, because I had confused Madrigal with Moncada and Mercedes and anyone else with an M name. So what are your thoughts on this?
I don't like the trade. For basically a rental, the White Sox are trying to trade for a championship. And I don't think it's the right move, especially when you already have a great bullpen. Liam Hendricks was an all-star. Michael Kopech has been a great setup guy. They obviously have a great rotation at the start. So I don't think trading for Kimbrel changes that too much, and giving up probably the best young second baseman in the MLB because he's only in his second season, and Madrigal's hitting over 300. I know he's out for the season. Maybe they think he'll be bad next year or regress next year because of his injuries, when I don't think so. I just think it's too risky of a trade for the future. And if they don't win this year, the Cubs win the trade by a factor of 1 million, especially if Craig Kimbrell doesn't resign.
Yeah, and Madrigal was the 4th overall pick in 2018. That's incredible. So it's a good thing for the Cubs because they're like, heck yeah, we'll take him. He's young and still on that rookie contract, so he can help. And he's been very good in the big leagues. And then so I think I see where the White Sox are saying, or what they were trying to do, but I definitely agree with you. Seems like a lot to give up for a rental, but maybe the idea of having Hendricks move into the setup role, where he has this season been able to stretch 2 innings and get 6 outs. So maybe if they run into trouble, they can just throw Hendricks in there, and then you have Kimbrel to close out the game, which sounds amazing, but just they're really going in on pitching, as they have a great rotation, and then they add just another great piece to their bullpen. But still, for the price, I don't know if I do it. What are your thoughts?
So I think another important part of this is the fact that the White Sox could definitely do something like let's say Lance Lynn is having a terrible game, or they're very sharp, gives up 2 runs and has 2 guys on base already in the first inning. I would pull him and just put in Kopech, and then just do a bullpen game. Their bullpen is just as good as the rotation now. And if they have, like you said, do 3 innings of Kopech, 3 innings of Hendrick, and 3 innings of Kimbrel in a game 7, I would be fine with that. I think Kimbrel could go 3 innings. I think Hendricks could go 3 innings. Obviously, Kopech is supposed to be a starter in his future. Could go 3 innings. Maybe you pitch Kopech 5 if it's a bad start to the game, and just go 2 with the other 2. But this really allows them to pull what the Rays have been doing consistently, and that's starting like a bullpen guy. And now that sets them up for a crazy end, because it means, I think the most important part of this is extra innings. Now, extra innings normally, in most instances, wouldn't be any different than a normal inning. But now, when you have a runner starting off at second base for this now the last season, thankfully, the zombie runner, as you like to call it, it now makes it to where having a great pitcher in is essential, because a hit gives you a run. And so having Kimbrel, if he gets through the ninth and is tired, you can put in Hendricks for the 10th and 11th. And that is something that I don't think any other team right now has the uh, ability to do, especially with the Yankees' struggles. If this was last year's Yankees with Green, Britton, and Chapman all pitching the same, I think we'd be having the same instance with Kopech, Hendricks, and Kimbrel. But right now, the White Sox are the best bullpen, and the Yankees bullpen is playing terribly. Chapman's kind of played better lately, and I'm glad to see it, but I need to see consistent success before I stop my worry whenever he comes in at the end of the game.
Well, I'm going to go back to your Rays mentioning. I don't think La Russa would do what Kevin Cash did in Game 6 of the Rays. Like, I know the analytics say don't let him go to the third time through the order. I don't think La Russa would pull Lance Lynn, because we all know how that turned out when they pulled out Blake Snell. But it is a good point. They do have great relievers if needed. But now let's move on to another Cubs trade. This one definitely surprised me. They trade second baseman / shortstop Javi Baez and right-handed pitcher Trevor Williams to the Mets for center fielder Pete Crow Armstrong. And Javi Baez has been great, and he's probably going to move to second baseman once Lindor comes back. But just some of the plays I've seen from Baez, he leads the league in errors, but maybe moving to second base helps him. And he just hasn't been doing well this year. But he's still a great player, and he is also, once again, a sort of a rental, but maybe the Mets are hoping that they can convince him to stay past this season. What are your thoughts on this?
So Javi Baez, I think the playoff success of the Mets this season is essential, especially if they want to keep Javi Baez. Javi Baez will be looking, hey, is this team a future contender, and do I want to re-sign with them? And I think that's also important for DeGrom. DeGrom has not had consistent help by his hitters, and it's important that the Mets show that with these trades that they're better at that. And I think in the playoffs, it's also going to be important, especially when DeGrom doesn't start, as historically the Mets have been a team, as of recently, that I can't score runs when they matter.
Yeah, and Baez adds in some winning experience, as Lindor has some experience, but he didn't win because he lost to Baez. But now we can move on to the next trade, which is when the Twins trade. I'm sure you recognize this guy. Trade left-handed pitcher J.A. Happ to the Cardinals for left-handed pitcher Evan Sisk and right-handed pitcher John Gann. So Cardinals once again adding a pitcher as they are waiting for Flaherty to get back, and they need some help with that rotation, as I think they are definitely making a push given the Nolan Arenado trade they made earlier this season. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so obviously this is a desperation trade. J.A. Happ isn't having the best season, but he does have experience, has made multiple playoff starts, and it's desperation time for The Cardinals. I know I just mentioned that. They're 11 games out of the top of their division, and they are 7 games out of the no 7.5 games out of a playoff spot. They're 7.5 games behind the Padres, is what that means. So if they want to catch up to the Padres, they're gonna have to go on a big run. And obviously they lost last night with J. Happ starting, even though J. Happ didn't get the loss. So they're gonna have to play desperate. And this trade definitely was that when it was made. And I understand it, but they have one of the oldest rotations I think I've ever seen with the 36, a 35, a 37, and a 39. It's crazy. I obviously have Adam Wainwright, who's been the most consistent starter just because Flaherty's been out for so long. Um, and yeah, so they're trying to make moves to make the playoffs, but we'll see if it does it.
Yeah, we will see. Now we go to the Nationals trading outfielder Kyle Schwarber to the Red Sox right-handed minor league pitcher Aldo Ramirez. The thing that surprised me about this is you now have a tough situation with the DH and in left field. Because I think a first baseman would have done well because you can put a first baseman and do a DH. But with JD Martinez being your primary DH, you can't do you put Schwarber into left field, or do you move Schwarber in DH and then put Martinez out at left field? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, both of those guys are terrible fielders, respectively. Like, obviously, they're better than you and I, but for MLB outfielders, they are not good. And so, you're right. They put him in a rough situation. CJ Cron would have been a much better trade. Uh, Obviously, you and I talked about that, and we predicted him to go to Boston, but Schwarber cannot play first. JD Martinez cannot play first. And you obviously can't play both of them in the outfield. So, one of them is going to have to be your DH. And the fact that they didn't see that being a big issue worries me a little bit for the Red Sox, as both of them have historically not been great fielders, and in a big game moment, I don't know if we want a catch to come down to Kyle Schwarber or JD Martinez to save the game. Do you disagree with that, or?
No, I definitely agree with you there. There was just one play, I think it was against the Rays. Martinez made a good catch, and that's important that he becomes as much as he can in such a short amount of time. He gets better. But the thing is, they have great bats, both of them. But trading for Schwarber's bat specifically, but where do you put him on the field? Because you don't have two DH spots. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and the only thing I can compare, and I'm sorry to bring up old memories, but this is Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz wasn't a great fielder, but he was an outstanding hitter. Outstanding. And I feel like the Rangers, if they put a better defensive outfielder in the outfield, would have a ring right now. And they decided, no, we're going to play him in the field, and it cost him. Nelson Cruz has historically a great arm, but he's not fast, and he has no jump on the ball. And so he just couldn't get to that ball. Maybe he read it wrong, but a normal guy gets back there and then waits on the ball and stands in front of it and then makes the catch and wins the World Series. Nelson Cruz was the big reason why they got there. I don't blame Nelson Cruz for losing the World Series. He was a major piece of why they got to that point. However, he did make a bad play and it did cost him. And I think that we could see something very similar happen to the Red Sox if they decide to run JD Martinez and Kyle Schwarber in the outfield, or even just one of them, as they're both not historically great fielders.
That is a great point, but we'll move on quickly to the next trade, where the Indians trade outfielder Jordan Luplow and reliever DJ Johnson to the Rays for a pitching prospect, and that is Peyton Battenfield. So we talking about Nelson Cruz. He is on the Rays, but very specifically DH. I don't think I've seen him play in the outfield at all, because Rays are definitely a team that they prioritize defense. You have Phillips, Kiermaier, and Meadows, and a Rosarena. But I don't think a Rosarena, has he played right field, or is he?
Yeah, he's played a good bit
Left
of
field
right field,
Okay.
somewhat, but not entirely. Sometimes.
But adding a reliever, because they did trade Diego Castillo, and adding another right outfielder just always helps. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, Nelson Cruz hasn't played the field since he left Seattle in 2018. So 2019, 2020, and 2021, he is yet to play in the field. So I don't think the Rays are gonna change that. Uh, and he hasn't played any other position besides right field because of his arm. Since Texas, his last year of Texas, he only played right field or DH. So he has a good arm, so that's why you play him in right field rather than left field, so he can at least do something positively in the field. But again, his bat's way too strong to take him out of the lineup. Like he should be in the MLB. He's hitting uh what is it? 281, and he was hitting 294 with Minnesota, and he struggled with Tampa lately. But he's hit 281 this season. He already has 21 homers, and so I understand why you play him. The issue is, do you play him in the field? And they obviously don't. And I I I like this trade for the Indians. What were you say?
Well, I was just gonna say Nelson Cruz is 281, so you're correct. And if you're talking about Rangers game, he's not fast enough. He's 41 now, so sorry to all the 40-year-olds listening. You're probably not as fast, and this is probably true about Nelson Cruz. Maybe not true about you, but I would kind of like to see a Nelson Cruz in right field and like a ball where it could be catchable, but he like tries to run for it. I think that would be funny. Give me some closure. But what were you gonna say about the Indians?
Yeah, I like this trade for the Indians as they pick up a prospect. I like this trade for the Rays. Jordan Luplow can play outfield and he can play third base. He's had multiple games at third base, and I've seen him play multiple positions this year. So if they need him there, that obviously works out. And obviously you can't have too many pitchers, so they pick up a reliever too.
And now we go to another team that traded a right-handed reliever, and that is the Marlins trading John Curtis to the Brewers in exchange for minor league catcher Peyton Henry. We were talking about great rotations, but the White Sox, Brewers have quite a three-headed monster in Burns. I can't figure out Pedroia. No, that's a first
Peralta.
baseman. Peralta, and shoot, I can't name people still. Um,
Was it?
Woodrow.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, is that right? Woodrow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Woodruff. I'll look this up. And then, but you need to add some relieving. And they do that, and they're going to be in a very tough NL race in the playoffs. So, adding as much as you can to that pitching can definitely help. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and so the Brewers don't have the best bullpen besides Hader. So they obviously try to stiffen that up by picking up another reliever, and I do think that's essential in the playoffs. You need a good relieving core. The last team with the subpar relieving core we saw was the Nationals, and that's why they not paid, well, I guess paid, but paid and played their starters so much. That's why they didn't take him out to the very end, and it got him a World Series. But when you don't have a 5-man rotation or 4-man rotation, I mean, the Nationals really had a 5-man rotation in the playoffs. Obviously, they had Patrick Corbin, who pitched some games as a starter, but mostly as a reliever, but he was a starter. Anibal Sanchez, Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer, and Joe Ross, who also pitched a game for the Nationals during the playoffs. I believe he started game 4, which they lost. But still, it shows that they relied on their starters and making sure that all of them are not only not tired, but their relievers didn't have to come in much. But that's not going to be the case for the Brewers, as I don't think they pitch 5 wide in the playoffs, and so they're going to need a relieving depth if they want to make it far.
Yeah, it's very true. And just to remind everyone, it was Brandon Woodruff that I was thinking about. And now we move on to a trade which kind of surprised me. It's the Cubs trading outfielder Jake Marisnick to the Padres for right-handed pitcher Anderson Espinoza. I'm not surprised that the Cubs traded someone, but I'm more surprised for the Padres trading for another outfielder because we talked about how they have too many infielders and how they're probably going to move Frazier into the outfield. So why do you trade for another outfielder? Unless this definitely suggests that Hosmer is just not going to be in the lineup as frequently.
Yeah, so it's an interesting move, but Marisnik isn't a guy that I see starting. He's more of a bench guy that you bring in the ninth or eighth inning when you need a lockdown outfielder. to put in for a guy like Nelson Cruz in the 7th inning if you are going to play Nelson Cruz. But obviously, the Padres don't have Nelson Cruz, but they do have some issues in the outfield. But Jake Marisnik is also a speed guy. You can bring him in as a pinch runner. So yeah, I find it important for the for players like this to be picked up by teams. I mean, we've seen the Yankees make moves for guys like Tim LeCastro from the Arizona Diamondbacks. I almost said Dodgers because we in 2017 we traded for Tim LeCastro from the Dodgers, and then he obviously went to go sign with Arizona, and then we traded for him again from Arizona. So picking up speed guys, I think, is important for playoff runs, and we see them doing that here with the Brewers or not Padres. I mean.
That's an excellent point you make on running, because it's very important, even though the Yankees have strayed away from that, but they do have LeCastro. So I think we can move on to the Rangers trading right-handed pitcher Kyle Gibson, right-handed pitcher Ian Kennedy, and then prospect Hans Cruz to the Phillies for right-handed pitcher Spencer Howard, right-handed pitcher Kevin Gowdy, and right-handed pitcher Josh Gesnar. So I think this trade pretty much shores up the pitching depth in the system and in the big league level, as Spencer Howard just made his big league debut today against the Angels. Didn't go so well, but he struck out Otani, so I like that part. It's the small wins right now. But this does fulfill the Phillies getting a good reliever in Ian Kennedy, a closer, and then getting a nice rotational piece in Gibson. But it did cost them, as I've been reading, Spencer Howard was their number one prospect and one of their definitely their best pitching prospect. And he had been a guy that had come up into the big leagues. But the only thing that makes me flinch or cringe is the Rangers trading a prospect, Hans Cruz, to get this deal.
Yeah, trading Hans is definitely not something that I would have done, and I think I think the Phillies won this trade because they obviously get somebody for the future, but also have guys for the now. So I like this trade for the Phillies. The Rangers, I mean, if Howard does work out, I like this trade, but there's no guarantee. So, uh, I mean, it's just a hoping game. It's a waiting game. It's a long game, whatever you want to call it. The Rangers are hoping that what they gave up is worth the All Star and the great reliever that they did, and also the prospect. So I don't necessarily like this trade right now, but maybe in the future it looks good for both teams.
Yeah, hopefully it works out. That's what I'm thinking about. Now we move on to the Nationals trading infielder Josh Harrison and catcher Yan Gomez to the Athletics for catcher / right fielder Drew Millis, right-handed pitcher Seth Schumann, and right-handed pitcher Richard Gouache. So the Athletics adding some good players as they are trying to make a playoff push. And Harrison usually plays third base, or can he play some shortstop? Austin, do you
Uh,
know that offhand?
Josh Harrison, I don't think plays as much. Hmm. I'm gonna check. I normally think he plays second and third. Yeah, from what with with the Oakland Athletics so far, he's only played second and third. I believe it says he's played. Yeah, he's only played second and third with the Oakland so far this season. He doesn't play as much shortstop, and I don't think they're going to use him there as much. Uh, it's going to be an interesting thing, but I like Josh Harrison. He was obviously a two-time All-Star, and he's a good hitter when he's hot. So I feel like he could be a useful bat, especially if they need it.
Yeah, I was just wondering because they have a great defensive infield except Andrews, and he hasn't been doing well at hitting wise either. So I didn't know if they were going to start to kind of lessen his time in the field, but um, it doesn't look like Harrison's going to do that. But we'll see. But he is a great player and has a great bat, as you mentioned. And then the Nationals trade left-handed starter John Lester to the Cardinals for minor league outfielder Logan Thomas. So once again, adding an older piece, as John Lester is about
36.
he's 36. He's 37, and his
Oh,
birthday is January 7th, 1984. So, but still pretty old in
yeah.
baseball terms.
Yeah. He's won 3 World Series, 2 with Boston, I believe. I think. Yeah, 2 with Boston. I just looked it up. And 1 with Chicago. And then obviously he's won. I mean, he's almost won multiple Cy Youngs. He's an NLCS MVP, 5-time All Star, but he's not in his prime anymore, and he struggled so far this season with a not the greatest ERA in the world, 5.16 last season, 5.38 this season. He hasn't really been himself since he made the All Star game back in 2018. Um, and so this is another panic move, and I think it's a fine move, but I don't. It just depends on what they gave up and whether or not that turns out for the Nationals. But Nationals are obviously getting something for. I mean, they weren't going to make the playoffs this year anyway, especially when they traded Scherzer. So I think this move makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense um, from their point of view. We'll see how Lester does with the Cardinals. Now, the Angels trade left-handed starter Andrew Heaney and cash to the Yankees for minor league right-handers Jansen Junk and Elvis Peguero. I'm surprised the Yankees wanted a starter from the Angels, but given how the market was probably how the market had been cleared out, it's good for the Yankees to get this. I'm more surprised on the Angels part though, because you need starters. So why are you trading one away?
Yeah, and obviously the Yankees get cash for this. So from what I've seen, they don't really lose any money picking him up. Uh, so the Yankees again trying to stay under the luxury tax, and by the Angels paying them cash and giving them a starter, they not only give them an arm but give them flexibility later on.
Yeah, as we've mentioned before, the Yankees are very close to the luxury tax, but they are just a few, couple thousand under the luxury tax. So they definitely need cash. Now we get to the big trade from the Cubs, and that's trading third baseman Chris Bryant to the Giants for prospects Alexander Canario and Caleb Killian, who are pretty high up in the Giants system, I'm pretty sure. Killian, I know, is an outfielder, and I've heard good things from him about him defensively. So this this is a trade I flirted with in the review episode, but I went with Ramirez instead. And he is a versatile player, so I'm going to add in a story. Austin, have you ever heard why Chris Bryant and Joey Gallo are so versatile in the field?
No.
So of course they were all on the same little league team with it was Chris Bryant, Joey Gallo, and Bryce Harper. But the story just talks about Gallo and Bryant and how their dads were the coaches of a team. And and another team, let's say a kid's name is Billy. Billy's dad goes to Joey Gallo and Chris Bryant's dad, who are the coaches, saying, "My son needs to play third base." So they're like, "Okay, Roger's at third. Chris, you're going to right field or whatever. Joey, you're going to left field." So then, whenever the player would get tired, they'd move Chris Bryant into the third base. So that's how it happened. A parent would go, "My kid needs to be here to play this game." So they go, "Okay, Chris, you're moving over to first base, third base." But that shows the versatility, and that can really help the Giants. But he's probably going to stick at third base, and he does add some more experience with the World Series. But you already have some great experience with the Giants already.
Yeah, this definitely wasn't an experienced move. It's definitely for his batting and definitely his fielding. And while he's never won a Gold Glove, he's always been a solid infielder. And I like this trade for the Giants as now they're going all in. While they didn't have to trade any one of their top couple prospects, they're definitely making this move to ensure that they have the best chance possible to win a World Series.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how they play against the big names that the Dodgers acquired. Now we go to the Pirates trading closer Richard Rodriguez for to the Braves for right-handed pitchers Bryce Wilson and Ricky DeVito, and that um, this adds a good player to pitching help, which is the Braves desperately need. As we say, they're only about, I think last time I checked, they're about 3.5 games out from the NL East um, title. So they're definitely making that push, given how they reshaped that roster. Are you checking me on the how far they are back?
Yeah, they're even though they have a record 1 game, half a game actually above the St. Louis Cardinals, who are 11 games back in their division. The Braves are only 2 games back, and that just shows the uh, you could call it parity, or just that the entire division is bad. So yeah, they're 2 games back.
What are your thoughts on the Pirates trade?
Yeah, so it makes sense. The Pirates are losing guys while selling high. I do think this just adds some help, but it's going to be interesting to see if the Pirates stick with these guys for the future, if they made this trade just to get rid of cap space or the long term, or what they're trying to do. But obviously, the Braves are trying to make a final push into the playoffs, and without Acuna, it's going to be tough. But adding pitching can always help.
Yeah, and now we move on to the Angels trading a left-handed reliever Tony Watson to the Giants for left-handed reliever Sam Selman and prospects Jose Marti and Ivan Armstrong. So once again, surprised the Angels are trading away a reliever, but makes sense for the Giants as they're trying to compete. And um, I see it okay by the Giants because they don't really need it, but they're just adding extra arms. What are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, so Tony Watson is a former All Star back in 2014 with the Pirates. But he's also a guy who's played with the Giants the past 3 seasons and then signed with the Angels and is traded back. Last season, he had a 2.50 ERA with the Giants. And in his 2 appearances so far this season, he has not yet given up a run. So I think this is a move that is a stability move. He's been there before. He knows the system. He knows the guys. And adds another arm to the bullpen. Now, for the Angels, I don't really understand his trade. I know he wasn't playing all that well with a 4.64 ERA, but trading away any arm, I don't really understand, especially if you're trying to make the playoffs with the lack of arms the Angels currently have, or lack of quality arms, I should say.
And now the final trade, and then we got one more note that happened after the trade deadline is the Kansas City Royals trading away Jorge Soler to the Atlanta Braves in exchange for minor league right-handed pitcher Casey Kallick. Soler has been on a power tear as of late and adds another, combined with Duvall, Peterson, and Soler, and I'm forgetting one person. Am I correct? To that outfield.
What did you say?
Or did I get it correctly? So the Braves added Soler, Peterson, and I just said the guy's name, and Duvall to their lineup. They added another outfielder. Am I correct or no?
I don't really remember. I don't think they did because that would be their entire outfield, and I know that they have multiple guys who can play outfield. So I'd be surprised if they made a move to pick up uh, any other outfielders unless they're prospects.
Okay, but Soler adds hope. They're hoping that Duvall, Peterson, and Soler can help amount to some of the stuff that Acuna was able to do just all by himself. But it's a good sign for the people that are Braves fans, as the Braves just didn't pack it in, but they really tried to make some changes to push for the deadline, to push for the crown of their division. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously Jorge Soler led the entire uh, uh, AL in home runs back in 2019. So he's a big power bat, and I think all of these trades definitely sure up their outfield without Ozzy Albies. I would play Duvall in center, Jock Peterson in right, and Jorge Soler in left. That should do good enough to make it to where they won't be great defensively, but they'll be viable. And obviously, the hitting is much more important from their outfield right now than their defensive abilities. And with some pitchers stepping up right now for the Braves, that may be all they need.
Yeah, but now speaking of pitchers, Cole Hamels signed with the Dodgers, and he was a Brave. Last time he pitched was 2020, because I think he got injured during that season. And he was signed by the Dodgers. It's an interesting signing because the Dodgers I don't think they would sign another guy for, like, you have Scherzer, you have Danny Duffy, you have Julio Urias, David Price, Walker Bueller, and Clayton Kershaw when he comes back. But I think we see Cole Hamels move into the bullpen, um, just in case, because you saw Julio Urias become a reliever just because of how great their depth was last year in the playoffs as he closed out Game 6. So, and Cole Hamels can play in the playoffs. I double checked that with Austin. The deadline is September 1st. So, do you think we see Cole Hamels become a reliever, or do you think we have him come back as a starter?
I think he comes back as a starter, and the reason is Julio Urias I think goes back to reliever. He's a great starter, great reliever. He's just a great pitcher. So even though he leads the NL on wins right now, or is at least tied, he it's a guy with 4 saves in his career. He's had multiple games finished, and obviously, like you said, he ended Game 6 last year uh, with a great pitching performance. So I would not necessarily be surprised if they go back to what's worked previously, and that's what I really think they do. I think Hamels is that fifth starter, and while he may pitch in the bullpen during the playoffs, I think during the regular season he will be a starter.
Okay, I just thought of Urias staying at starter because he's younger, and I'm not sure how the stamina pitching wise of Cole Hamels. So I thought you maybe he starts out of the bullpen, and then come playoffs time you see them switch, but we'll see. Now that concludes our episode. Thank you for listening. Next episode, we'll be going back to the NBA and talking about the newly hired coaches. And both of our teams got a new coach. So we'll definitely have some thoughts on how that went. I think yours will be more positive than mine. And we'll also be doing predictions on how the coaches were fair well with their teams. So make sure to be on the lookout for that, and make sure to check out Outsiders Pod 21 on Twitter. So if you can't stay update on YouTube, you can see it on Twitter. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.